Welcome in, welcome in. Good morning. What's going on? What day is it? Today is Wednesday. All right, so we got the midweek check-in. How are the Browns doing? Going to look at some stories from the week. Gonna talk to y'all about some things I've been looking up. But first, you are tuned in to Eliminate the Gray with Offtharecorddee, where real sports talk lives. Zedric, what's going on? What's going on, Zedric? Shout out to you for being here. Each week, I break down the biggest stories in sports, give you honest takes, fueled by logic, life experience, and time spent in team sports. No hot takes for clicks, just real perspective. I call it how I see it. Whether that's breaking down a big game or calling out the media for how they spin the story. If you want sports talk with no agenda, you're in the right place. Let's go. All right, so I put together what I believe is going to be a really good show for today. So let me tell you all a little bit about what I decided to do today. So this week has been a lot of talk about if the Browns should keep Flacco, if they should let Flacco remain as the starter, or if they should bench Flacco. It's been a lot of talk about, is Dillon Gabriel ready? Is he not ready? In the NFL, do teams develop guys? Do guys just figure it out on their own? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Cleveland Browns offensive line situation. We're going to compare that to the other teams across the NFL. We're going to look at Coach Prime and what he said about Shedeur on the New Heights podcast. We're going to look at the New York Giants, who are making decisions as they come, and they are not waiting to let narratives pile up and let the media stir the pot for them. They announced Jaxson Dart is going to be the starter. We're going to look at that. Albert Breer. Good old Albert. I haven't had any stories with Albert in a while, but I think it's fitting to bring him back onto the show. And we're gonna listen to some of the things he said about the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation. And we're going to do it as always. Also, Joe Flacco. Now, I have a long memory. And I remember before the season, NFL GMs were polled, and they said Joe Flacco was the second to worst quarterback in the NFL. Were they right or were they wrong? How did they see this before the season started? So when people give the Browns, oh man, they got to be the smartest in the room. Once you start letting things play out, you realize it's a reason why people call them the smartest in the room, and it's not a positive. Also, I'm a research junkie. So I was digging through the crates. I'm looking at all this stuff, and I found Julian Edelman's podcast. He had Matt Patricia on there. Matt Patricia, we know, is the offensive coordinator currently at Ohio State. This is from about 7 or 8 months ago. They were speaking on the 2011 Baltimore Ravens. The 2011 Baltimore Ravens. And our offense being powerful and what you needed to do to stop that offense. So in 2011, they wrote the book on Joe Flacco, and it's still true to this day. And people just have it in the back of their head. They can memorize what you need to do to stop Joe Flacco. So we're going to take a look at that. So all in all, I believe we're going to have a great show. We're going to get to it. Got some different topics. Also, something that no one's talking about. Everybody's saying, let Joe Flacco play another week. So the defenses that we didn't think Dillon Gabriel would do well against, we didn't want to start him to start the year. Okay, that was Cincinnati's defense. We didn't want to put him up against Baltimore, which we realized Baltimore's defense is not good. Then the Green Bay Packers. Man, the Green Bay Packers defense, you can't put them against Green Bay. Now it's the Detroit Lions. If the Cleveland Browns go out and lose this game to the Detroit Lions and Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco, he's the 2025 version of Joe Flacco that we've been seeing, they decide we're going to make a change. We're going to go to Dillon Gabriel. Guess who they are going to be setting Dillon Gabriel up to go against? Does anybody know? Y'all know I got questions early. I always have questions. they're going to be setting Dillon Gabriel up to go against one of my favorite defensive coordinators, Brian Flores. Now, what people do is they always pit the quarterbacks against each other like Joe Burrow was ever going to have to tackle Joe Flacco, which wasn't true. Like Carson Wentz, who's going to be the starter potentially when the Browns face Minnesota, that, you know, if Dillon Gabriel's a starter, he's going to have to go against him. You got it, Zedric. Brian Flores. So you know what I did? I'm always ahead of the curve because I'm willing to put myself out there, and you know, just I'm willing to be wrong, but I know that I'm looking so much into things that I'm not always right. But I would say if it's, you know, 60% right, 40% wrong, I'll take it. That's still a winning grade. If they put him up against Brian Flores, it's gonna be a disaster. And I was doing my all 22 things. Zedric, you heard me talking about all the film I'm reviewing. I'm just going to show you 2 interceptions that Jake Browning threw going against that Minnesota Vikings defense. And he has experience in the NFL. I would say his offensive line is comparable, if not better than the Cleveland Browns offensive line at this current moment. He definitely has more weapons on offense than the Cleveland Browns. And they had him lost. He didn't know where to go with the football. So that's just going to be a terrible landing spot for a rookie. So we're going to get into that. I might even pull up some PFF grades. I didn't talk about the Browns PFF grades on Monday. Their offensive PFF grades. But let me get this up. So let's see. We should go over the Browns offensive PFF grades just so people can see what the Browns actually put out there when it comes to PFF grades. Oh my goodness. It's going to be a disaster if they let Dillon Gabriel start against Brian Flores. It's going to be a disaster. Yeah, these guys have the book on what Kevin Stefanski's offense is, and Kevin Stefanski is not adding anything new to his route trees. And when you look at defense on the deeper level, you got to say, okay, defenses that win in the NFL, they're putting somebody in conflict on every play. It's the same way you play defense in the NBA. It's very similar. You pick the person you want to put in conflict, and you're forcing them to make a decision, and you're going off of their decision. When you look at Kevin Stefanski's offense, it's very hard to see who he is consistently putting in conflict, whether it be a third-string cornerback, whether it be a linebacker that's better in the run and not good in pass coverage. You very rarely see that, and that's one of the issues that there is with Kevin Stefanski's offense. Now, another thing I realized, I went on my walk this morning, and I'm just listening to stuff, and I had so many things just going through my mind, and I watched this thing on Instagram. I couldn't find it. I tried to find it. It was some people who were speaking about Raiola, the quarterback for Nebraska, the one who mimics Patrick Mahomes, looks like Patrick Mahomes, and they were saying they're over him as a quarterback because they identify that fundamentally he does things that are bad. He doesn't set his feet. He throws with uneven base. He drifts back and throws the ball. And they're saying, hey, this stuff is going to set you up for disaster later. And you know what everybody in the comments said? Everybody in the comments said, but they won the game and he threw 3 touchdowns. And something clicked, and I was like, we're having different conversations. And I had to see it somewhere else to recognize it. So it's a lot of times when I'm saying certain things about a quarterback, or I'm saying something about Kevin Stefanski, I'm saying something about Andrew Berry, people are not having that same conversation with me. So, the lines, they get blurred and people don't realize what you're saying, but that's okay. We're going to make it crystal clear today. So the first thing we're going to get to, let's get this party started. First thing we're going to get to is the New York Giants. The New York Giants decided to make a change. They said, you know what? We're ready to make a change. Russ, we're not letting Russ cook anymore. Russ is not good anymore. This is going to be is this his 4th team? This is about his 4th team in 4 years. So they're over the Russell Wilson experience. Jaxson Dart is going to be the starter. If you were here yesterday, you know that now we'll be following along Jaxson Dart on Tuesdays when I'm going over my college QBs. I'll also be looking at Jaxson Dart and rating his performance as well. So we're going to be adding him to the Tuesday show. But they said, hey, Jaxson Dart is going to be our starter moving forward. It's times where I like when coaches are decisive. So before the season, before training camp, Russell Wilson is our starter. He eliminated all questions Brian Daboll did. And I'm not saying Brian Daboll is the greatest coach. I'm just saying that he understands and he knows how the New York media will do things. So he just said no competition in training camp. Now he said, I'm going to review the tape and we're going to see. Then he announces Jaxson Dart is a starter. So he eliminates 90% of the questions that somebody like, say, Kevin Stefanski gets because Kevin Stefanski rides the fence. Good morning, Ms. Brown. I'm hearing some sound coming from somewhere. Okay, let me turn this down. All right, there we go. My phone was playing some sound in the background. I'm like, what is this? I think I'm going crazy. Zedrick. Kevin Stefanski spent the summer treating DG like a first-round pick just to switch up when the season starts. You are correct. So when people say he's not ready, you look at it and say, okay, Dillon Gabriel, he played all these years in college. He has all this experience, the most starts in college. He got all the reps, and now we can't make him a starter. He's not ready. We're trying to find a soft landing spot for him. Which I think the soft landing spot for a rookie quarterback is a weak way to go, and it's based out of fear. So let's get to. I didn't think so for a while. I'd never talked about Skip Bayless on my show. Gilbert Arenas has resurrected Skip Bayless' career, and since he's done that, Skip is not as unbearable, and I think it's because of the combination of guys he has him with. But they're going to be speaking on Jaxson Dart, and let's go. This is our first clip of the day.
But and he didn't really do much. But the point is, he can bang it. He had 14 rushing touchdowns at Ole Miss. So I just think they need a fresh vibe for their fans because Russ is just hard to watch unless he could play the Dallas Cowboys every Sunday. And fortunately, he can't.
I agree with the decision to start Dart. I didn't want you to throw him in initially from the jump. You start with him. Nah, I think you go with the vet.
Yeah.
You see what you got. Maybe Russ get hot. Maybe you know what I'm saying, could win some games with him. But if you end up 0-3, it's time for a change. You know what I'm saying? So this is what the crowd want. They want Jaxson Dart. You want to give a little spark to the stadium, to your fan base.
Jaxson Dart.
Jaxson Dart. Hey.
Ms. Brown, you're right. He's supposed to have all this experience. He's supposed to be this supercomputer. He's supposed to be so far ahead of Shedeur Sanders, and now he's the backup. So if Joe Flacco gets injured on the first play of the game, you're going to have to put him in. But at the same time, you're saying he's not ready. So those two things don't match. So if he wasn't going to be ready to be the backup, you should have kept Kenny Pickett. You didn't keep Kenny Pickett. You have him listed as the backup every week. So at a moment's notice, he can have to go in. So those two things are in conflict with each other. So you're right there.
Hey, so
Same with Skip. He was joining him.
hey, you know how Skip? He a Cowboys fan, but he cheering for Jaxson Dart. I don't know, but you know. But I think it's time though, man. You give him a shot. You get a fan base what they want, and we'll see. We'll see. I'm not saying I'm the most firm believer in Jaxson Dart, but big game against the Chargers. We'll see.
Yep. Hard environment to excel in, the Giants. But
Yeah,
That's so funny you say that, Mrs. Brown. Dart not really like that they're going to see. I agree. So when I was watching stuff on these quarterbacks coming into the draft, I was looking at it was an interview with John Gruden. And John Gruden is interviewing Jaxson Dart. And they're speaking on just what was his responsibilities as a quarterback when he was at Ole Miss. And he was like, okay, give me your snap count. And you know how when you hear, you might hear a quarterback say, oh, Turbo said hut. Jaxson Dart said his was a clap. So he didn't even have a snap count. If you notice, nobody in the NFL does the clap thing. Dillon won't be able to see over the line, which is funny. It's when I heard that from Jaxson Dart, I was like, okay, so he wasn't leading when stuff was snapping. He said, who made the audible? Oh, they called in the audible from the outside. Okay. Where did you go with your reads? Who determined the reads? The quarterback did. So when I saw that, that made me kind of question Jaxson Dart. Now, this comes into play when it comes to like the physical tools. You can say, okay, he has the physical tools, but if he's never had to mentally go through these things, it's going to be a struggle, and that's a true development quarterback. Zedric, they're trying to fabricate a perfect scenario for Dillon that can backfire too. I totally agree. That's why I said them waiting, you want him to go against Detroit. You don't want Joe Flacco to go out here and throw 2 picks, the Browns get blown out, they waste another good defensive game, and then you're like, man, we got to make a change, and you put him in against the Minnesota Vikings. Wait till we get to the point in the show where I show you the all 22, what Brian Flores did to Jake Browning is crazy. He was so lost. This is the other side of the Dillon debate, and that's why this is perfect timing for Jaxson Dart to be starting, because now you get to hear how people speak on it. Cody Kessler is going to be next. Cody Kessler is a former Browns pick. He played at USC, and he flamed out. But this is his view of how he would do it.
I like Jaxson Dart. I love Jaxson Dart. I think he has a bright future.
By the way, he started at USC.
He did start at USC, and he's the one that got away. I wish he would have stayed
Really?
Cardinal and gold. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
he left because Caleb and Lincoln came.
Well,
right?
he left originally because the coaching staff changed, and then he started going to the transfer portal. So then he went to Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss and all that, so it worked out.
He left for the money.
Yeah, he left. Well, we don't know.
I don't know if he
But,
lost
that
that
go?
much money at that
Yeah.
point. That was 3 years.
That was
Okay.
that was kind of a new era with the NIL stuff. But
He started for 3 years for Lane.
yeah, he did. I like Jaxson Dart. I hate this decision. I do. I don't like it. I worry that this is going to hurt his development. It's going to hurt his future. When they moved up, or they traded up in the draft to go draft Jaxson Dart, it was to draft for their future. It wasn't for week 4 of the season. You have to build the pieces around him before you throw in a rookie quarterback. The offensive line is struggling right now. You have
The Jets want to play him, but he's not ready. The Manning and Ole Miss. Yeah, Archer's not ready. And Ole Miss, it's something to look at. Guys that come from Lane Kiffin, they usually don't do that well in the NFL because Lane Kiffin controls everything. And this is the other side of the argument. You heard Cody Kessler getting into it, saying he doesn't like it. He said, I like Jaxson Dart, but, we should wait. They should wait. Basically, the exact same thing they're saying about Dillon Gabriel, perfect scenario. It's no perfect scenario in the NFL. You are going to have to face these teams. You're going to have to face these teams. So the longer you make them wait, you are building up the anxiety with them. You are building up the nervousness. You are subconsciously doing that and you don't even realize it. So then when the rookie get out there and they're pressing, it's because you let them build up for 6 more weeks and they should have been out there playing. So it's just, it's one of them situations. People don't want guys to play based out of fear, not because they think the situation is wrong. Every time Cody Kessler, when I listen to him on this podcast, he speaks fear when he's talking about a quarterback actually going to play. Raul, here you go. Here you go, Raul. That's gonna be a dub. We had our Cody Kessler moments when we drafted him and he had to play after 3 weeks. We don't want no more of those. We don't want no more of those. So let's wrap up him speaking his fear-based, and this is the same way people were speaking about Dillon. So it's funny that it goes hand in hand like this.
Have great players on the outside. Sure, you have Malik Neighbors, you got other weapons, but the most important thing for a rookie quarterback is to be protected, to have a great offensive line. If you start getting hit all the time early on in your career, your eyes start dropping to that offensive line. You're not going through progression. You become a run-first quarterback, and when you scramble, you don't keep your eyes downfield. You're looking to make sure you don't get hit. Good news for them is their right tackle, Illumina.
So this is him speaking from his own experience. This is what he did. So another time I was watching this when they were speaking on Shedeur not wanting to go be a backup, Aqib Talib was like, Shedeur doesn't have a backup bone in his body. You have backup bones. You're a backup. You're okay being a backup. You're okay not handling the pressure. You're okay not being put out there to actually with the expectation of performing. That's what he said about Cody Kessler, and I agree. That's true. Now, what he's saying about the offensive line, when I said I was doing some research this morning, I'm looking at these offensive lines. The circumstances are not what people are leading us to believe about the offensive line. So this is mainly Cleveland Browns based. So this is going to be the first offensive line situation we're going to look at. Because they know they are not ready or they are not that good. See, I I've never heard the not ready term this much as I've heard it this year. I think these people know these guys aren't good. In most situations, they don't believe in the guy like they say they do. Zedrick, he's speaking from experience with the Browns. Everyone not built like that. I totally agree. He's definitely speaking from his experience. It just oozes out, and he can't separate it. So, yeah, I would agree with the second half of what you said, Ms. Brown. These people know these guys are not that good. That's why you're trying to curate the safest environment for them to go out on the field. You basically put them in bubble wrap saying they're not ready. So it's crazy. Now let's get to the Cleveland Browns offensive line. I think this is a dirty hit. This is Dawand Jones. He is going to be out for the year. This DB just went low on him for no reason and took out his knee. Now the Browns are down their 2 offensive tackles. Dawand Jones out for the year. Jack Conklin has an issue with his elbow. They're trying to figure out. So this forced me to start doing some digging. I was like, is it just the Cleveland Browns? Is it just the Cleveland Browns that have offensive line issues, or is it more teams? And hyping them up like they were doing Arch. I agree. Yeah. The way that they are backpedaling on this 2026 draft class is crazy. They backpedaling faster than Coach Prime. Yeah, it was unnecessary. Yeah, I agree. This is just unfortunate. This is something that needs to be out of the game. So I can't even put that on Dawand Jones being hit like this and his leg being blown up. Like, you can't put that on Dawand Jones. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, is it just the Browns who are having this problem at offensive line? And I went through the injury report for all the NFL teams, the one up to today. And what I found is 23 teams have 2 or more offensive linemen on the injury report, and most of those offensive linemen are on injured reserve. Some teams have 4 and 5 guys on injured reserve offensive linemen who are already out for a decent amount of time. So then I started to think, like, we can't really use that as an excuse for quarterback performance like they're trying to. Like, they want to say, oh, Joe Flacco, the offensive line is the reason why, when he's missing guys wide open and he's not willing to take the chance. So we can't use that as an excuse. Then I went even further. So after I went through the whole list and I realized there was so many teams that have offensive line injuries, then I was like, okay, how are these teams performing? Buffalo is the only team that's currently in first place that doesn't have offensive line injuries. Every other first place team has offensive line injuries. They're still in first place. It seems like people that got injuries and they don't want to get hit. It's a combination of that. You know, when you're trying to protect yourself, the thing you don't want to happen is the thing that ends up happening. So if you overcompensate you're trying not to get hurt, you end up getting hurt. So the excuse is not there. Everybody has a hurt offensive line, basically. Or not everybody. Majority of the league has an injured offensive line. Majority of the league is still performing. So we have to eliminate that excuse. Then also the next level to the offensive line. We got to look at Andrew Berry. He's the architect of this team. What did he do to upgrade the offensive line in the offseason? He signed a couple of fringe veterans who can play multiple positions on the offensive line. He spent no draft capital on the offensive line. So don't tell me it's this big concern when the season starts and stuff is going south when you spent no draft capital on it. You build up a good team through the draft. You don't build up good teams signing all these free agents. It rarely works in the NFL. You build up a good team through the draft, so you spend no draft capital on it, so you get no excuses for what happens when it comes to how your offensive line is doing. So I just had to look into that because I was thinking, I was like, is this just a us thing or is this a lot of people thing? And it's a lot of teams thing. All right, let's get to Coach Prime. Everybody is talking about Coach Prime and what he had to say about the Shedeur situation on New Heights. So let's get to it. Let's get you switched over. Whoops. Wrong button. There we go. It's actually close to no money invested in the offensive line going forward. the offensive line, the only person that's under contract going into next year is Dawand Jones. So it's not really any money invested in the offensive line going forward. Shout out to Kyler. Shout out to Tim. What's going on? How y'all doing? Shit, he went after Will Campbell over Mason Graham. I don't know if Will Campbell was top 5 pick worthy to me. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. So far, I'm appreciating what we got from Mason Graham, what he adds to this defense, because 3 years ago, the only thing we were asking for was defensive tackles. 4 years ago, we were asking for defensive tackles. 5 years ago, when we had Joe Woods, we were asking for defensive tackles. So I can't ask for defensive tackles for 5 years. I finally get a highly rated defensive tackle, and then I started to question it. So that's all I'll say about that. But they didn't spend the money. They didn't spend the resources on the offensive line. You got to miss me with complaining about it. I haven't really looked into Will Campbell either. I'm not even going to lie to you, Kyler. Kyler, where was you at yesterday, man, when I was breaking down them college quarterbacks, man? I was looking for you. Sometimes I know he loves his son, but sometimes he needs to be quiet. See, Ms. Brown, I always agree with you until this. I would say this. If you don't have the right to speak on your son, who has the right to speak on him? If the parent can't speak on the child, who has the right then? Got you. Shout out to you, man. Hey, you got to get that money, man. I'm right there with you. I understand. This is how I feel about when people speak. You can say whatever you want to say. I just get to make my decision of how you view the world and how you view things after you say what you say. So I'm never the person that says this person shouldn't speak on this person should speak on that. Speak about whatever you want to speak on. Because the reality of the situation is, if he comes out and confirms this story, or if this story is just floating around in the air, the story's still there. Coach Prime didn't put the story out first. If you are cleaning up or confirming a story based on your son making a decision, I think that's 100% inbounds. 100% inbounds. Because then people can just lie on your son and you just say, okay, I'm okay with it. I don't think that's right. So let's get to what Coach Prime says here.
Panthers, I guess as Browns fans, we got to know. Have you been keeping up with Shedeur in Cleveland?
Oh,
what's the best piece of advice you've given him as a dad and as a coach?
Be patient and be ready.
There you go.
Be patient and be ready.
That's all you can do.
I don't want you to, they call your name and you ain't ready. Don't let that. We ain't built like that. Sanders, we ain't built like that. We always ready. We don't have to get ready.
There you go.
Always ready. And I want you to be patient. You don't force none that it may not be time. You know, I drink coffee every morning. That's one thing I do. I don't pull the coffee cup off the darn maker before it's ready. It's got to be prepared, right? And put my ingredients in, I make it right. But I'm like, son, you gotta be ready. You got to be ready when it's time. But when it's time, you're gonna know. I say, and it's coming up. You know, I got a prediction. I ain't telling nobody. I got a feeling when it's gonna go down. But it's gonna go down this year.
Right.
He's gonna get a shot.
Happen. All right.
Yeah, he's gonna get a shot.
And that's all you can ask for as a player. All you can ask for is the opportunity, right?
Tell me this, because this is all over the media, because I know y'all keep it a buck. That's why I love y'all to life. And Mama, too. Please tell Mama I said hi.
You know it.
Let me tell you something. How in the world, they made a big deal.
Zedric, I agree with you. I think Deion was clarifying in this case because of the way Schefter framed it. I agree. And also, I was looking at how everybody's responding to this, and I saw something from Colin Cowherd, and they are framing it as if these teams called them early on. They're saying that like, oh, they called them pre-draft. No, that's not the case. They called him when they were on the board at 141. They called him when the Eagles were about to pick. That's when they called him in the 5th round. So people are framing it like they were going to take him earlier than the 5th round, which is not true. So that's why I don't have an issue with this. Ms. Brown, the person that had number 2 on the Cleveland Browns, what happened to him? They said he got hurt. You're right. DeAndre Carter, he's a kick returner. He does not make a difference on the team. He don't make a difference on the team. So he's here, but he don't make a difference. Let's get to it.
A lot of Philly called us on draft day. They didn't mention that. I just let a cat out of the bag. Philly called us on
Okay, no, it's good. I didn't know that. Yeah, okay.
Who was it? Baltimore.
This all happened in the 5th round, which is interesting. Yes, this all happened in the 5th round because if you look at the picks, Baltimore took a offensive lineman at 141, and Philly was about to be on the board. You're right, but people always make it seem like he's going to be the villain. I think people are going to do that regardless. Ms. Brown, I think people are going to pick a side regardless of what you say, even when you say it clear. And I think that's one of the things you got to be okay with. It's people that go against things that I say, and I'm okay with it. I can't fight every person who doesn't agree with me. It's okay. Kyler, there was a report that the Saints called him in the 4th. I don't believe that report, and I'll tell you why. Before the draft, word came out that the Saints were not going to – the Saints were the second team that was reported that they were not going to take Shedeur. They were the second team that reported that. First was the Giants. First was the Giants who came out. And remember, Todd McShay was saying this pre-draft. He said this pre-draft, the Saints and the Giants were out on Shedeur. He said this like 2 or 3 days right before the draft. He said they're out on Shedeur. Once the Saints took Tyler Shuck in the 2nd round, it was no way you're going to take Shedeur in the 4th. You would be doing the exact same thing that the Browns did with taking Dillon in the 3rd and Shedeur in the 5th. Most organizations do not take 2 quarterbacks who are viewed similarly going into the draft. So if you have a 1st or a 2nd round grade on Shedeur, a lot of people had a 2nd round grade on Tyler Shuck. So you most organizations wouldn't do that. So some of these things, like, I would just deny the report right off the rip because it wouldn't make sense. And they were the first ones who put the word out, oh, we're not taking Shedeur. So also I'm with Zedric. Who put that report out? Because I find it funny. I don't expect the Browns to do anything traditional. The Browns can be 100% traditional, or they can be 100% against the grain, what everybody does. The Browns are like a wild card. I know what Kevin Stefanski's going to say, but trying to guess what the Browns going to do, nobody can guess that. Nobody can guess that. I was doing live streams during the draft, and I got you, Tim. My bot got you, but I got you. I'm going to read your thing. I was live streaming the draft, and I was talking about it. And when we took Dillon Gabriel, this was me. I was like Stewie. When we took Dillon Gabriel, I was debating if I was going to remain a Browns fan. I've been a Browns fan my whole life. But everything I looked into Dillon Gabriel pre-draft, and then we took him at 94, I thought there was no way we would take Shedeur, which I wanted Shedeur at pick 2. I was like, man, I might not be a Browns fan no more. So I don't expect the Browns. They all over the place. All right, let's get to Tim. All right, Tim, nice to tune in and hear you talk on draft line, and you're on point. Maybe we can use next year's picks, the lot, and build a dynasty O-line, make it deep, because trench warfare has casualties happen. I agree. I agree with that. The amount of injuries I'm seeing to offensive line, I'm really changing how I view the offensive line. It's 5 of those guys up there. I'm thinking if I'm running a team, I'm just drafting an offensive lineman every year. I'm not taking one like in the 1st round every year, but I'm getting to a point where the Browns next year, they need to take one in the 1st round with one, either their pick or Jacksonville. And then from there, they need to take another one like in the 3rd round. At some point, you just got to start stockpiling your offensive line. That's what I would do. So I'm definitely changing how I view the offensive lineman. There's no way that they didn't take a swing on one somewhere. So let's get back to it, because now he's actually he just said the Eagles. He's going to say a little bit more.
Baltimore, and the
Baltimore?
I
Browns.
heard this. Yeah.
And the Browns. They forget.
Yes.
I know. I played for Baltimore, so me and Ozzie are cool. So
There you go.
we
Yes.
understood that whole conversation, and he wanted to talk to Shedeur as well as he wanted to talk to me. And I put Shedeur on the phone, and Shedeur, I don't want to say how it went, but how in the world can somebody fault him for saying or thinking, why in the world would I go back up Lamar for 10 more years? Like, who comes in with that mindset?
Yeah, I think it's at least 2 of the top 4 picks should be linemen next year. I totally agree. You got nobody under contract. If you wouldn't draft in 1, sell those picks. If you wouldn't draft in 1, sell those picks. Are you saying package the picks up for more picks? If somebody wants to say jump up and you don't want to get a quarterback? Is that what you're saying, Sam? Yeah, they gotta start building out this offensive line. One thing I also noticed, so when I really start looking into something, I look into it a lot. So one thing I noticed was the positions that we had secured when Andrew Berry was signed, those are the positions that he just cannot get right. Remember, when Andrew Berry got here, we had Jarvis Landry, we had Odell Beckham Jr. Receiver position was set. He took a young, I can't remember if he took David Njoku. Actually, no, he didn't take David Njoku. He has not been able to find receivers, and he also has not been able to get a better offensive line. All of his draft picks in those 2 categories have not panned out. And those are the positions that he had solidified when he got here. So I think it's maybe it wasn't his concern, so he was just doing deeper dives into other positions, but those are the positions that have given him trouble the entire time. Are you talking about the offensive line? Okay, got you. Jacksonville might be a bad investment for a top pick. You think Jacksonville gonna be good the whole year? Kyler? I don't think it's a crazy thing to say, but I don't think Trevor Lawrence is that good. I think Trevor Lawrence is a mid-tier quarterback. I think you would say he's top 20, but you wouldn't have him top 10, and you wouldn't have him bottom 10. I think he's just a mid quarterback. So I don't think they're just gonna have this great year. I could see them not doing well. Yeah, I don't believe in Jacksonville. I don't believe in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, he gets injured. He's been getting injured, missing 1 or 2 games the last couple years. So yeah, I don't believe in him. Yeah, it's insane. Currently, folks value receiver over O-line. That needs to change. I totally agree. Like, when you look at these teams, you wonder why they're good. You got to go right to the offensive line. Philly doesn't look as unstoppable because they got 2 of their top offensive linemen injured and 1 left. So where you see the breakdown at, it starts right at the offensive line. People are starting to question quarterbacks who were good, who now don't have good offensive lines. People are saying C.J. Stroud probably isn't that good because their offensive line isn't good, but they can't run the ball. So it's just, they're not winning that division. Jacksonville not winning that division. Colts gonna win that division easy. Colts gonna win that division. They changed the rules to protect investment in QB with that relaxed O-line values. It seems to have happened, but now it's backfiring. And when I'm looking at college quarterbacks, I'm starting to look at offensive tackles, and I'm gonna tell y'all, the offensive tackles who are doing the best, a bunch of them are right tackles. I'm not seeing the standout left tackle yet. It's only 4 weeks in, but I'm looking at the college offensive tackles, and I'm like, how are all the top-rated tackles right tackles? I'm like, that's a problem. Zedric, you were on to something. The way I've seen the Browns play so far, receiver doesn't seem like a priority either, scheme-wise. You want to know something? I find it so funny that people who haven't been lifelong Browns fans, they identify these problems immediately. Zedric, didn't you say the other day that this offense doesn't look creative? I think you said that the other day, if I remember correctly. It lacks creativity, is I think the words you use. Kevin Stefanski has had issues with good receivers for a long time, going back to his Minnesota days when Stephon Diggs wasn't consistently getting the ball, going back to when they had Odell and Jarvis, receivers not consistently getting the ball. You see it. You see how quick you pick up on it. Only hear it discuss tight end play and running backs. It's so true. It's very safe. Amari Cooper had that great year where he broke the Browns record, I believe, for not receiving yards. Let me lie, because he didn't have more than Josh Gordon. But I think it was receptions, maybe. I think it might have been receptions where he went crazy in receptions for the Browns. That was because Joe Flacco just kept force feeding them the ball. If you notice, they are single covering Jerry Jeudy because they know the Browns just won't throw him a 50-50 ball. If the Browns don't get an offensive line, it's going to be a new GM and new coach in here getting them a new offensive line. Somebody's going to get them an offensive line. Hey, it's going to be Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski going to be pushing for offensive line, or it's going to be the people who replace them that's going to get an offensive line, because you have to have an offensive line. And Kevin Stefanski's scheme is what he wants it to be is, in the ideal world, you don't have a number one receiver. You just have a bunch of receivers and you can target any of them to keep the element of surprise. You lean on the tight end as your safe play and you run the ball. The problem with O-linemen in college is, man, Kyler, I got you, but let me read your message. The problem with O-linemen in college is they aren't just rough, tough, old school style blocker. They're worried about sliding around the pocket, and that creates more mismatches. Yes. And also, what I'm realizing watching so much more college football, these are not the same games. The NFL and college are not the same game. They're the same sport. They're not the same game. If you look at how they run so many quarterbacks in college, you don't see as many guys pulling as much as you see in the NFL. So the schemes are different, and it's just hard to identify these guys based on the scheme. Then you have guys are just bigger. They're just bigger and faster. So you don't really you can't judge a person until it's good on good. Like even with these quarterbacks, it's hard to really judge them too much when they're beating the team 56-0 and the team had no shot. You really want to judge them good on good, where their offensive line is going against a competent defensive line. They could potentially confuse you. You see them get rushed. So it's kind of like two different sports. But it's one thing the Browns can't do is take a top right tackle and move him to left tackle. They did that with Jedrick Wills. They tried to do that with Dawand Jones when he had a good year of right tackle. They moved him to left tackle. So they just gotta take whatever they can get. The top offensive lineman, as long as it's not a center. We got a backup center already on the team that we drafted in the third round out of Ohio State 2 years ago. So they're trying to get him ready and develop him. That development turn always comes back. So you got to go with a guy's natural position and let him maintain that. So that's the offensive line piece of it. Let's get back to Coach Prime.
No, that's not where you want to go. If the goal is to be that guy and you want to be the player,
Right.
and the number quarterback,
And you want to get that opportunity.
Yeah, but where do these guys come from that sit on these platforms and say, oh, you should have sat in behind and learned the game and been what they developed? When have the pros ever developed anybody?
Yeah, it don't happen very often.
By the time you get to the NFL, they expect you to know what you need to do and to do it, or somebody else go get in there and do it. Now, they teach you their playbook, but development and teaching you how to route folks up and you how to block and hold that point, man, please. Ain't nobody taught you that.
That was a key to what they just said. I'm going to get to your comment, Kyler. A right tackle might not be a bad decision if DG is their guy. Based on what they have in the offensive line, which is nobody, they just got to take the highest rated offensive lineman. I'll be hesitant if it was a center, but the highest rated offensive lineman, they got to take them. Hopefully it's a right tackle, left tackle, whichever it is. I don't think Dillon's the guy, but it don't even matter because they need to rebuild the whole offensive line because they only have one under contract and he just got his knee blown out. So They got to just take the highest one. We were talking about that buzzword development yesterday, and you just heard it there. Jason Kelce just said, nope, they don't develop. Travis Kelce said they don't develop. Coach Prime said they don't develop. Now, what people do is people want confirmation bias, and they want to just believe when someone says and it's in line with what they believe. What we are learning is it's been in our face the whole time. The NFL is not developing guys, because then you got to ask the question, who has a track record of developing players in the Cleveland Browns? Who have they developed? Who have they brought in who's a raw project and they turned them into something since this regime has been in place? If you look at all the star players, the players that make the plays, they were that guy in college and they just doing the same thing in the NFL. Denzel Ward was that guy in college. He was a very early first-round pick. Myles Garrett was that guy. Mason Graham already, he was pick number 5. Carson Schwarzenegger, he was the first pick of the second round, so early draft pick. Grant Delpit, Grant Delpit was either first round or early second round pick. Can't remember off the top of my head. He was that guy at LSU. So once you really start going, you're like, okay, are they development guys who are on the fringe and helping them get better? Not really. Look at Cedric Tillman. He isn't anything better than he was 3 years ago when they drafted him. So you start looking at these guys and everybody's saying it's development. So you're supposed to get better by sitting there and just watching the game? Everything you get better at by doing it. The first time you drove a car, you were like, man, there's a whole lot going on. You drive a car now, you might drive with your knee. You might be texting, you talking on the phone, you eating food after you come through the drive-thru, you drinking coffee on your way to work. You're doing so much more stuff. And how did you get better? Sitting in the passenger seat watching people drive, or you actually having the control and you driving? Everything you got better at is because it was repetition and you doing more of it. What do people get better at that they never participate in and just magically get better from watching? Don't worry. I'll wait. There you go. That's the key. Muscle memory. Muscle memory kicks in. You don't even think about it anymore. You don't even think about the things you do. You don't even think about it. So in a game like the NFL, where things are happening so fast, why do you think they practice when they have a script for the opening 15 plays? Why do you think they spend that entire week laying the groundwork for that plays, going through it mentally, then they go through it physically, then they doing walkthroughs leading up to the game? And why do you think those first 15 plays look so good? Because somebody sat and watched the plays, or you spent the whole week installing it? You got to ask yourself these questions. So when they are saying this development, more people are saying they weren't developed. How many times do you hear a former athlete on a podcast talking about the situation they went into and how they never were developed? They never got better. It happens all the time. But somehow the Cleveland Browns, who draft 2 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, and don't have an offensive line after this year, they're the ones who are going to develop people? Or the Baltimore Ravens. I know people don't like to question things that they see getting better from the outside. But I'll ask you this question. The Baltimore Ravens are known to have a good defense every year. How come they're not developing middle linebackers? How come they are not just a middle linebacker factory? Why did they have to go trade for a middle linebacker? The Baltimore Ravens usually have good defensive tackle. How come they're not a defensive tackle factory? You got to ask yourself these questions. And people say, oh, sit behind Lamar. Lamar and Shedeur don't play similar play styles at all. So even when you get in there, it's not going to match. Oh, go sit behind Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a one-read quarterback. One read. Everybody knows that. Shedeur is an all-field quarterback because he doesn't have the athleticism to lean on. It doesn't match. I was ready when my number was called. They say that often. They do. They don't say this coach stayed with me for 11 hours and after practice, at the end of the day, this coach is staying with me, helping me understand these things. They don't say that. So there you go, Ms. Brown. You got to play to get better. That's it. You got to play to get better. There's a reason why you only hear colleges brand themselves wide receiver U or DBU. Look at Ohio State. I'm an Ohio State fan. Every year, Ohio State is sending another receiver to the NFL who is winning Offensive Rookie of the Year or is in the top voting for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Every year, LSU is always having top receivers coming in. See, I wouldn't even. Okay, let's go with that, Kyler. Sanders needs to go sit behind Dak. Who are the quarterbacks who sat behind Dak and went somewhere else and looked like they could be competent? That's the question. That is the question. Everybody says go sit behind this guy. But who sat behind that guy who's been a starter for a long time and turned into something? Ms. Brown, got to put the rookies in to get better. Exactly. You got to put them in. So every position on the Cleveland Browns is up for grabs and a rookie can play except for quarterback. And I know people don't want to hear this. People are trying to say, oh, well, this guy was in the 3rd round and this guy was in the 5th round. Who got drafted first? Dillon Sampson or Dillon Gabriel? Who got drafted first? Harold Fannin or Dillon Gabriel? Wasn't Harold Fannin drafted in the 4th round? Let's work this thing out. Mason Graham, Carson Schlesinger, Quinshon Judkins. Did it go Harold Fannin or Dillon Gabriel? I think it went Dillon Gabriel. Then it went Harold Fannin. All these guys can play. There hasn't been anyone in a similar situation with at least decent ability. That's your answer. That is your answer. The ones with the ability get the opportunity to play. They don't go sit behind somebody unless they were drafted high and the plan all along, regardless of how things went, was to sit them. That's the one caveat that I'll add to that. I think there's technical stuff they can glean from to use, but not to sit and develop. I agree. I agree with that. Shedeur even said he will watch Joe Flacco do things and he will go try it when he gets opportunity. Dak and Shedeur are so similar. I disagree with that. Dak Prescott is the ultimate game manager. And this is not a diss. This means he plays within the confines of the game. He will never break the mold and do something going against what teams expect. And that's been his MO the entire time. You get Dak Prescott off schedule, he can't really run the same anymore physically. And when you get him in high pressure situations, he can lead the team on a drive, but he's not taking the team to the next level. When have you seen Dak Prescott identify what the defense is doing in game and then go make them pay in that same game? I don't see that from Dak. I don't see it. I see college quarterbacks do that. I see NFL quarterbacks do that. I saw Joe Flacco do that in 2023 with Amari Cooper. So I don't. Dak is the highest paid on paper, yes, but I put Dak in the category of really good Kirk Cousins. I put them in the category. They're not gonna lead your team to a Super Bowl. They could be on the ride, on the bus riding to the Super Bowl. They're not gonna lead your team. They're not gonna lead your team to one. And we know that just looking at what Dak has done in the playoffs. So I don't think they're similar. Shedeur is willing to take more calculated risks than Dak Prescott is. And that's just what it is. What we got next? Never, but there's probably 4 QBs in this league who can. You hit something on the head right there, Zedric. Nobody said Dak needed to develop when Romo got injured. Dak was ready to go as a 4th round pick. There you go. That's your answer. Nobody said Brock Purdy needed to develop when the other guys got injured and he went and played for San Francisco. So people just bend the narrative. Kyler, I would say this. Is game managers and game changers, and I would say what I've seen from Shedeur, I believe he could be a game changer with his mind. I think he'll be able to manipulate defenses, and I think he'll be able to take advantage of coverages that he's seen. The interception that we saw Jordan Love throw to Grant Delpit, where he faked him out, how many times have we seen Shedeur make that mistake? Versus how many times have we seen Dak Prescott make that mistake, Jordan Love make that mistake, Kirk Cousins make that mistake? We've seen so many guys, you go down the list, they all been fooled like that. And there's some guys who usually don't get fooled like that. Even in Shedeur's worst game, he didn't throw an interception. I disagree, and that's no shade to him. Explain. You disagree with him being able to be a game changer from him thinking the game? And I'm not the person that takes everything as like a diss to a person if you don't agree. I know other people might take things that way, but I don't take it that way. I don't take it that way. All right, I'll wait for you to come back, Kyler. Let's go to the next thing we have. We're going to get to, I had some stuff on Albert Breer, but let's see what he says about Dillon Gabriel.
Considering benching Joe Flacco for Dillon Gabriel, and now Joe, we've got a great win, by the way. We appreciate that win. Joe was not a big part of the win as they kind of won in spite of Joe. How close do you think the Browns have actually gotten to benching Joe Flacco from this point?
I don't think it's gotten that close. The sense I got through camp and like into the beginning of the season was that Joe was light years ahead of the other two, and Dillon was like significantly ahead of Shedeur. So I mean, has Dillon closed that gap? I certainly think it's possible. I know they felt like at the beginning of the season, like, and the way it was explained to me was like we would feel comfortable putting Dillon in a game right now, which is part of what gave you the freedom to move off of Kenny Pickett. But I think like as long as they're in the hunt, and like at 1 and 2, they're still in the hunt. I think you go with what you know. You go with Joe Flacco, but I think like
what Albert Breer just said there doesn't match. They don't align. He's good enough to be the backup, so at a moment's notice he can have to go in and play. But at the same time, as bad as Joe Flacco's been, you don't believe they're ready to put him in. Those two things don't match. Shedeur's a good player because he went through so much. I'll tell you why I believe Shedeur's a good player. First off, it's experience. If you were in the stream on Sunday, I was telling somebody the first thing I would look at. Zedric, I agree with you. Breer going off old information. He's not living right now. Bias is showing. Totally agree. That's why the two things he says, they don't match. They don't. Within 10 or 15 seconds of each other, he says some contradictory things. First off, Shedeur with experience. So it's some things. I'm putting together a list of like if I'm evaluating college quarterbacks, what I want them to have. One that is non-negotiable for me. Oh yeah, I agree with you, Ms. Brown. One is experience. I want at least 25 starts. Shedeur had more than 25 starts because that means you were a starter for at least 2+ years. So I want starts. Then turnovers. I don't want you leading nobody in turnovers. After turnovers, how you handle pressure. I'll read your comment here in a second, Kyler. How you handle pressure. So if you look at all the metrics, Shedeur was one of the best dealing with pressure. Then we're going to look at scheme. If you had no running game, they know you're throwing the ball. How did you beat that? So once you start checking those boxes, also, Zedric, I told you I was going to steal this from you. I want them to be athletic when necessary, but I want them to use their mind when they're playing the game. That's my base. Then from there, we'll go to things like accuracy. We'll go to things like timing. We'll start branching off into other things. Those are the things I'm looking at. Now let's get to Kyler and your comment. The way the game is going, QBs have to be fairly athletic. Just look at the D linemen. Those guys can outrun running backs, and Sanders panics under pressure and tries to make something happen that's not there. Okay. I'll tell you the part. Shedeur definitely had the accuracy, Ms. Brown. I'll tell you where I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't believe he panics under pressure. You have to go down in distance. When you say he's trying to make something happen, tell me the down and distance. Because this is where people, they have an idea of how they view him. Now, I'm not saying him running backwards is good. That's terrible. He needs to stop it. I'm not saying on a first down, him making a bad play. If it's third down and you're trying to make something happen, do you grade that the same way you grade a player doing the exact same thing on first down? That would be the question I'll ask you. What's the time and situation when it's happening? Is it on the fourth? Is it in the fourth quarter, under 2-minute drive? You got to make something happen. Those are all things that make sense. But I would disagree on the panic, and I would disagree on. I'm assuming you're saying he's not fairly athletic. That's what I'm assuming from your message, Kyler, because you said the way the game is going, QBs have to be fairly athletic. I'm guessing you're saying he's not fairly athletic, and there I would just disagree with you. I would say Joe Flacco is not athletic, and he's not Joe Flacco. So that would be my bar. My bar is Joe Flacco. Is he slower or faster than Joe Flacco? And I believe you can get it done without, you don't need Lamar speed. You can get it done with Mahomes speed. Mahomes not really beating no D lineman in a 40-yard dash. But Mahomes, based on the defensive coverage, he can get out there and get first downs. I think Shedeur can do the same thing. If they turn their back to the defense like they do Joe Flacco can't get 5 yards. He ran for 4 yards the other day, probably one of the longest runs he had in 11 years. So it's just some places where we fundamentally disagree and some places where we agree. So am I saying Shedeur is perfect? No. Can he get better? Yes. Does he have the accuracy? Does he think the game better than the group of young QBs we have? Because remember, I'm grading him based off the quarterbacks that everybody said was better. That is key. He is used to getting the ball down the field. Zedric, Shedeur is more agile than fast to me. I agree with that as well. And that's all you need to just move and shake and get forward. That's all you need. Nobody said you gotta be Lenore Sellers running the ball. That's good, but you just gotta be able to move and shake, step up in the pocket, slide right, slide left. He can do it. So I'm not taking it as a knock. So I think when you say good things about Shedeur, people assume you think he does no wrong, and that's not the case with me. I can't speak for other people, but that's me. Now let's look at, because remember, during draft time, what did everybody say? Everybody said Shedeur would have been the 6th or 7th quarterback drafted if he was in last year's class. Let's look at it. I'm going to be the one to ask y'all the questions. Would you take Bo Nix over Shedeur? Y'all see Bo Nix. Would you take Bo Nix over Shedeur? Would you take Penix over Shedeur? Would you take Drake May over Shedeur? I think the two that people are going to hold firm to that would take over Shedeur is maybe Jaden McDaniels and Caleb. But would you take J.J. McCarthy over Shedeur? J.J. McCarthy got some issues with injury. Missed the whole year. He's out right now. Let's look at 2026. 2026. Who you taking over Shedeur? First and second down, yes. Take a risk. Third or fourth, no. Kyler, you say you would take Bo Nix and Drake May over Shedeur? Hey, I think I'm learning what you like in a quarterback. I think you like a quarterback that has a little bit more physically. I think that's what, because Bo Nix and Drake May, that's what you would say that they have over Shedeur. You would say they have more than him physically. Neither one of them is as accurate as him. Neither one of them was the passer he was in college. So I think it's the athletic side that you're enjoying more. That's what I'm guessing. That's what I'm getting based on the two guys you said. And third down, to me, that's backwards. First and second down, why would you take a risk? You still got more downs to go. Third and fourth down, you definitely have to take the risk because it's fourth down. Third down, you're not taking a risk on third down? See, my philosophy and how I view football, I think it's just reverse of how you view it. Yeah, hopefully I'm reading this right. First and second down, yes, take a risk. Third and fourth, no. Yeah, see, I'm the reverse on that. I'm 100% reverse on that. If it's first down and I still have two more downs, I'm not taking a risk on first down. I'm taking a risk when I don't have more options left, not when I have the options. So, hey, we're gonna see. We're going to see. I think Drake May, I'm almost ready to put him in a category. I'm creating a new category for these quarterbacks who, when you see them standing somewhere, you hear them speaking, you hear them talking, they talk, they look, they sound like who people would say a quarterback is. And I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about height. I'm talking about physically. I'm talking about size. I'm talking about those things. Ms. Brown, they said Caleb wasn't as good as Shedeur. None of them. Everybody knocked Shedeur for taking sacks. Caleb took all those sacks last year. I'm not going to say nobody. Most people aren't consistent when they speak on these things. Most people aren't because they don't have a philosophy or a baseline for how they view it. So, yeah. You need to make the most efficient play on third and fourth down. Be risky when you have time to spare on the drive. I don't know if any offensive coordinator would agree with you right there. Okay. When somebody goes on first down, Caleb is not good. He went number 1 overall, and he was the consensus number 1 overall pick. So we got some shakeups there. But so we're on the drive. On first down, we get 9 yards. It is second and short. What do a lot of teams, I'm not going to say usually all of them, what do a lot of teams do on second and short? What do? They open up the playbook. Why do they open up the playbook? Because they know they can take a big shot and they got another yard, they got another down to live by. The most efficient play means you have I just see we get into it, but I think this is philosophy based with how you view how you would run an offense, I think, man, that's not it. Most teams take the shot on second down because they know they got the third down running their bag. What do teams do at the goal line when they're right at the goal line? When do they attempt to throw the ball? Second or third down. I mean, it's just some stuff that just happens. So I think we found it. So the core of where we disagree is, and it's okay. The core of where we disagree is on the style of quarterback that you prefer, and then also the philosophy of how you run offense, and that's fine. Disagreements are necessary because we don't want to, be living in an echo chamber. But I think we found where the situation is. We found it. So, see, you can come to these situations civilly and just talk it through. But both people have to be looking for answers and understanding, not looking to like diss somebody or something like that. So that's we found where the friction was. We found the friction. Let's get back to Joe Flacco. So people call the Browns the smartest in the room, especially when they're talking about Joe Flacco. I want to take y'all back. Let's see, which one did I have here? Running back up center for an out route on second down and go. Funny. Let's go to how long the book has been out on Joe Flacco. We're going to start here because when this came out, people were mad, and I don't understand why they were mad. Let me make sure I got the sound.
He's behind Daniel.
This is how Joe Flacco was viewed. Oh, yeah. Dunzo. But the Browns obviously don't believe that. The Browns believe he gave them the best chance to win. And I told y'all 3 weeks ago they was going to say this. But let's go.
Joe Flacco, 31. He's behind Daniel Jones. That's a joke. He's behind Russ Wilson. He's behind.
Okay. We all here now. Would y'all take Joe Flacco or would you take Daniel Jones this year? I think we all know the answer to that. Would y'all take Russell Wilson? Would y'all take Joe Flacco? That one is up in the air because, yeah, I ain't even going to be disrespectful and say nothing. That one is up in the air.
Behind Aaron Rodgers. He's behind Justin Fields.
Would you take Aaron Rodgers or would you take Joe Flacco? See, I think some of these is very easy. This is where your feelings take over, and that's what's happened to Rizzo.
Michael Penix Jr., Cam Ward. Cam Ward has started as many games in the NFL as I have. Caleb.
Y'all hearing these names? He would take Joe Flacco over Cam Ward. He would take Joe Flacco over all these guys he's naming.
Williams, child, please.
He would take Joe Flacco over Caleb Williams. Now, I'm not the biggest Caleb Williams guy, but I would take Caleb Williams over Joe Flacco. Like, what are these guys talking about?
The fact that anytime the Browns have high expectations, they fall flat on their face. Anytime everybody expects them to be terrible, they surprise people. Now, eventually that narrative has to change if you want to win consistently in the NFL. I understand that. But Riz, let's face it. We've got him right where we want him. No one.
You hear that? We got him right where we want him. Russ just gave you 400 with the Giants scheme. He looked just as bad with the Browns. Yeah, that's why. I think all of them are easy where I would pick the other guy over Joe Flacco. Russ, I think that's the closest name out of all of those. Russ and Joe Flacco, both of them toss-ups. Both of them going to get benched after a couple weeks. So I think that's the closest one. But the rest of them, it's not even close that you would not take none of those guys over Joe Flacco. So that was before the season. Also, I'm going to keep saying this every week. If you are a Shedeur Sanders supporter and you said Joe Flacco was old and trash before the season, I need all these people to come give everybody an apology. Beast, what's good? What's good? See, I think that's the only one that can be debated, but if you look at performance so far this year, Russ has put up better numbers than Joe Flacco. So that was before the year. Now I got a throwback for y'all. We're going to take this thing back. Yes, Jaxson Dart was announced as a starter. I was speaking on that. That was my first topic to open the show. On Tuesdays, I go over the college quarterbacks. I'm adding Jaxson Dart to that. So on Tuesdays, my live stream, towards the end of the stream, I'll go over the young quarterbacks who are getting their opportunity to start, who everybody told us was better than Shedeur. We're just going to look at the numbers, look at their performance, and see if they're better. I agree, Zedric. I would go with the upside on those players too. People picking Joe Flacco is crazy. Like Joe, I don't know how they were saying all those names, but let's throw it back. This is when the Browns, the smartest in the room. This is Julian Edelman and Matt Patricia. This is from 7 months ago. This is what they're going to say about Joe Flacco in his prime. This is 2011, y'all. They're talking about
offense for the Ravens. What was the keys to stop this offense? What was so good about this offense in 2011?
Well, I mean, coming out of the year before, obviously the run game was going to be an issue, right? So we got to stop the run. But this was getting Flacco. Like we got to get Joe Flacco. We got to make him uncomfortable. He's not really going to scramble. He's not going to take off. We got to push the middle of the pocket. They're going to get some yards. They've been getting it all year. We got to do a great job in the red area and then, make them try to drive it. And get some turnovers, which we did. We got a couple great. The Spikes pick in this game is a great play by
a one-hander.
Yeah,
right there. That was a really good pick.
Yeah.
Now
the book been out on Joe Flacco. They're talking about what he did in 2011. Is any of that incorrect? All right, let's get to Beast. I believe Cleveland Browns going to lose against Detroit Lions. They got 2-man stars on their team and the best duo running backs. Yeah, it's tough sledding. If the Browns can't cause turnovers and if Joe Flacco isn't better, it's a recipe for an L. Cleveland Browns have a lose mentality. I agree. They don't want to take any chances. So they're stuck. A lot of people who root for the Browns, they're stuck in a conundrum. Take the chance. Try something outside the box, but you have the risk and the fear of the unknown, or do what you always know and lose and get the same result. So they stuck. So as much as they want to go through that first door and change, they just can't bring themselves to change and try to turn things around. So Zedric, you see it. Nothing has changed on Joe Flacco. The book has been out on him. Now, this is 14 years later, so how slow you think he is? Now you got a short leash on him when he know he's going to lose his job. How are you putting him in a position to do better when the book has been out on him this long? The book has been out on Joe Flacco. So it's just crazy. It's very crazy to think that Joe Flacco is going to be any better. So I wanted to show you all that so y'all can see, like, the book has been out there and nothing Joe Flacco has done will lead us to believe that he's going to be better. So I got something for y'all. It's time to we're going to get to the all 22. So if you were here early, I was talking about if they wait to start Dillon Gabriel against Minnesota, the defense and Brian Flores, what they do to quarterbacks, they're setting him up to be in a worse position than if they would start him versus Detroit Lions. So let me get this adjusted. Yeah, I'm happy Shiloh. He's working out for the 49ers, right? I think it's the 49ers he's working out for. Yeah, I'm happy he got another opportunity too, man. You don't want to you don't want to see those guys get out, but as injuries pile up, that's when teams will be willing to take some outside chances. Let me get this set so we can I want to show y'all something. It's not giving me the option. Yeah, Joe Flacco looks a lot worse than he did. He looks a lot worse than he did in 2023 because they've got in his head that they don't want him to make any mistakes. So he's trying to not make mistakes, and now him not making mistakes is forcing him to not play well. There we go. All right. Found it. Let's put you down. So this is some of the stuff that Brian Flores is doing. Let me go to this first play. Which means no videos to play. All right, let me reset this, y'all. Make mistakes, try not to make mistakes, the irony. That's exactly it. It's one of those situations where, you know, everything you're trying to avoid is what you actually do. So right here, if you're looking at this defense early, you're like, okay, this could be, they're playing off coverage. They're all looking at the quarterback. You're thinking this is some form of zone coverage. Now, this is pre-snap. He's moving. He moved the tight end to the other side thinking, oh, man, they're going to show something. They didn't show him anything. They showed him nothing. He got no answers from moving the tight end. All they did was switch up some stuff on the other side to make him think even more. So here he has no idea what's about to hit him. He's going to snap the ball. They don't know who's coming. They drop out, which what looks like zone. Then they pick up into a man. He don't know where to go with the ball. Interception. Now, just watching that back, they went through like 3 different coverages in that play. And that's who they feel comfortable. So that's what they're trying to put Dillon Gabriel up against. And to me, I think that's setting him up for failure. But this is what happens when you're trying to find a soft landing spot. It's the same way you said, Zedrick, about the mistakes. Making mistakes, trying not to make mistakes. Trying to find a soft landing spot, you're going to end up in a worse position. You're going to put him in a worse situation. So it's just one of them situations where you cannot find the easy spot in the NFL to try to start a guy. You just have to put guys out there. All right, let me change the game. Let me go to the Browns game, because when I looked at some of the Browns tape, especially when Joe Flacco moved off of that deep pass opportunity, it was just insane. Beast, they have said Joe Flacco still is going to start. Joe Flacco is still the starter, unfortunately. Was it here? No, it's the second quarter. Let's get all the plays. Yeah, he looks off of the play so fast. It's so bad. Let me sort this thing out. I want Joe Flacco. You know, I think they're backing themselves up into a corner, where if they keep sending him out there and he looks as bad as he's looked, you're not sending a message to the team that we're trying to win. You're actually sending a message to the team we're not trying to do well. So who we have after? Let me see. Let me find this play so I can show you all this play where Joe Flacco looks away really quick. I know it's in the second quarter. I think this is it right here. Yeah, I believe this is the play right here. Let me get it lined up on the screen for y'all. So this is the play where Joe Flacco is going to not even really look downfield and just go right to the check down. I think Dillon Gabriel, so what they've been doing in preseason for Dillon Gabriel was they had him throwing a bunch of out routes. I seen it did have a built-in tight end screen, but he didn't look at the deep route long enough. So usually when you're reading the play, you're reading it deep to short, especially on a trick play like a flea flicker. You always reading deep to short. So that means you're looking at the deep guys first, and then you're coming back to the tight end screen, which is cool. he still made the wrong decision on the play. So this is the play right here. I'm not believing that. If he wasn't expected to look downfield, then why was Isaiah Bond frustrated after the play? If Isaiah Bond knew he was running a dummy route, he wouldn't have been frustrated. If I know I'm running a clear out route as a receiver, why would I be frustrated they didn't throw me the ball? Now they saying Joe Flacco being set up for failure, but when we said Shedeur was set up for failure, they said we're making excuses for Shedeur. Beast, you're on to something. You're on to something because I even said Kevin Stefanski, certain defenses, he doesn't know what to do. I hope this is his last game. Me either covering for Flacco. As an offensive play caller, you are trying to put your guys in the best position. But it's so bad, instead of just blaming Kevin Stefanski not being good at something, they say you're setting up Flacco when no, in reality, you're calling out that the play calls don't make sense. And even the way you read it doesn't make sense. So this is how open Isaiah Bond is. Wide open. Joe Flacco's already threw it down. He never even looked. Isaiah Bond looks frustrated after the play. Like, he's not looking like, oh, I was just running at the clear out. Now, watch it. We're going to see it from the front view, and you're going to see how quick he looks it off. He initially, this is why I kind of don't believe it. So he's going to initially look down there, but he's going to come off of it so fast. That's why I don't believe they're saying, oh, it's just I believe it had multiple reads, because when does a play only have one read? In the NFL, how many throwing plays? And at this, trick plays, how many trick plays go into screens for 5 or 6 yards? When have you seen somebody run a trick play it was just to get 10 yards? If Flacco's beat the Lions, we'll be stuck with him for the rest of the season. I think that's what they're going to say, but I don't think he can play as bad as he did this week. If the defense and special teams win the game like they did last week, I don't think there's any way we can go back to Flacco. I would move off of him. I would have moved off of him after this game, even in a win, because you're setting a bad precedent. If you keep putting him out there and he was that bad, it just doesn't. What does he have to do? What does he have to do for you to bench him? They bench everybody else. They bench Dawand Jones in the game. They put in the other tackles. They're moving the offensive line around. They bench Cam Mitchell. Cam Mitchell didn't play this week. So everybody can be benched on performance except Joe Flacco. What message does that send to the team? So here he is. Watch, he's looking downfield. He's looking downfield. This is why I believe what you said, Zedric, they're covering for him. Yeah, I don't think I agree with that. Flacco not beating the Lions, if anything, the defense is going to beat him. I agree. Flacco has gave us no reason to believe he can get points on the board consistently. So he's looking downfield right now, and he's going to move off of it quick. Move off of it. No pressure or anything. I'm not giving him the pass because you don't call that play. You're going to put all that on the line on the flea flicker, exposing and showing that play early in the year only for it to be a tight end check down? If anything, you always run the tight end screen off of it. The first time you run it, you throw it deep. The second time you run it, you run tight end screen because you got them off balance. Nobody is off balance when you have the deep man and you never go to it. That is the whole problem with the Browns offense right now is they're not going deep to open up the offense. So there's no way people want me to believe a player who hasn't been able to throw the ball deep, they set up deep shots for him, and you want me to believe that it was only designed for that. I'm not believing it. Ask any offensive play caller. You're not running a special play just to get that tight end screen. I don't even believe in it. They benched Shedeur for a game like Flacco had. They actually already have. Zedric, you are correct. You are correct. So if y'all know, I've been building the case out of Joe Flacco looked very similar to Shedeur did against the Rams. I hit y'all with something else on Monday. I said Joe Flacco's first 3 weeks of the season, he's not much better than what Deshaun Watson was last year. These are all people that they said couldn't play anymore. These are all people. That's the reason why Shedeur dropped to the 5th round. He can't play anymore. That's the reason why he's the 3rd string. Deshaun Watson, that's the reason why he need to be benched. After game 1, remember, I played for y'all the reaction to last year's game 1. I didn't even play this year's reaction to game 1. So they are doing that. They are moving the goalposts for Joe Flacco for no reason. If Shedeur had a bad game like this, they're not going to put Shedeur back in the game. Shedeur have to play perfect. I agree. If he's missing reads, which Joe Flacco's missing reads, because we can say, okay, this was designed. They drew up this whole play, the perfect play, only to get a tight end screened off of it. What about the other guys he's missing? What about him throwing off platform and throwing late, potentially throwing interceptions? What about those? It's only so much you can cover up for him before people who draw and design plays are going to ask the question, why would you do all that for that? I'm not believing it. I'm not believing it. Let's see. This is 3rd and 7. So this is after they would have put Flacco in and said we needed to get better look at our other guys in that situation. Would have put Flacco in and said we needed to get a better look at our other guys in that situation. Zedric, do you mean like you would have put somebody else in and then said we need to look at them? Or I'm trying to understand that one. This is Joe Flacco taking a sack. Oh, also, let me show y'all something. You got this single high safety. Hopefully y'all can see my mouse up there or see my mouse on here. The little hand. Single high safety. Cover 1. This is what has been crushing the Browns offense because Joe Flacco has not been able to read where to go with the football on these plays. So even if I say, you know what? Oh, after the game. Okay, got you. Yeah. Even if I give you all the first play and I say, you know what? They did all that just to get a tight end screen. All right, I give it to you. What's the defense for Joe Flacco not being able to do anything in cover 1? So look, cover 1 takes away the middle of the field because that's where Joe Flacco is the most comfortable. Nothing at the bottom of the screen is available. You don't really have nothing there. He already getting sacked, so he didn't have the answers. You had somebody else come open, and this is 3rd down, so you got to make something happen. Look at this. Let's see when he gets to his drop. He didn't even get to his drop. Stefanski just don't want to play. Stefanski just don't want Shedeur to play. It's so noticeable. I'm gonna give y'all some little nuggets. So Stefanski, he wants his quarterback to run the play that he calls regardless of what they see in front of them. And then once he builds trust, he'll give you 2 plays. So a lot of times during the game, you'll hear can. They're going from the first play to the second play. But he wants you just to run whatever play he calls, no deviation. The problem is, it's going to be situations where he calls a long developing play like this play that I just showed y'all. Joe Flacco would know where to go. And other quarterbacks would be like, nope, don't even chip. I want the running back to peel out the backfield. I'm going to throw it to him. Stefanski doesn't want that. So it's a conundrum. You want the quarterback to make the play, elevate the team, and make them better, but sometimes it's going to be outside of what the offensive coordinator is calling or the offensive play caller is calling. That's the issue that you run into with Kevin Stefanski. And Shedeur is going to be the one that says, man, cover 1, safety in the middle of the field, they're playing man press. I'm throwing it up to you, Jerry Jeudy. That's not winning football. Got to adapt. I agree. That's why they don't win. Hey, it's simple. It is what it is. That's why they don't win. They don't win because it's going to be times where the quarterback and the receiver start to identify what the defense is doing, what they're taking away. And if you don't get them that freedom to take advantage of it, and you got to go based on what Stefanski is seeing, ain't going to work. So when I was watching that thing on Matt Patricia, so this is how they go through the process of calling the play. So when they have scenarios, 1st and 10, this part of the field, they have a group of plays that they want to run there. So they go through those scenarios. Once they determine where they're at on the field, then they look at the plays that they like in that area. Then they're going based on what the defenses like to run in that situation, and they're trying to pick a play that's going to beat what the defense will normally run in that scenario and that point of the field. What I've noticed is once you go past that first 15 scripted plays that Stefanski runs, it takes him about a quarter and a half to catch up to what the defense is doing. This weekend, I want y'all to pay attention to the third, start with the third drive. The third drive, go from the third drive to the 6th drive with the Browns, and you'll see what I'm saying where they get stuck. I see more Browns fans saying they believe the team wins in spite of Kevin Stefanski, not because of him. Kevin Stefanski is supposed to be known as an offensive mind, and the offense has been trashed for 2 years. So, hey, it's you just call it what you see it. Zedric, you watching the games, you don't see creativity. You don't see them highlighting receivers. You see the stuff. Second quarter gets sluggish. And this is the thing. This is not new to this year. This is not new to this year. This happens all the time under Kevin Stefanski. All the time. All the time. This has been 3 years of this. You got to take out last year when Ken Dorsey was calling calls for Jameis after week 6. But minus that, when Kevin Stefanski's been a play caller, the Browns, I think it was, if I remember, it was about 2 or 3 years in a row, the Browns had the worst scoring offense in the second quarter. And that's because you're past the script, and at that point, it's offense on defense. And it's you determining what they're doing and being able to beat what they're doing in real time. When I called it out in the preseason, I said Kevin Stefanski didn't get to cover 1 beaters until it was too late for Shedeur. And then at that point, they switched it up and went to zone on you. So when you're running a cover 1 beater, they're in zone. In this situation, they needed a cover 1 beater with a quick outlet. They didn't have cover 1 beaters. None of these guys is running short routes. Let me go back to the play. This is 3rd and 7. Let's look at the sideline view. This is 3rd and 7. I told y'all it's very obvious this is a cover 1. This is cover 1. Look at the top of the field. You know that's man-to-man. Look at, you have the other safety. He is capped over David Njoku. In cover 1, the linebacker, Freedom. This linebacker can blitz. They can drop out in coverage. They could send all these guys if they wanted to. You got him playing press. You got him paying off just in case they cross. Bill O'Brien is a great offensive play caller. I wouldn't take him as a head coach, but he's a great offensive play caller. Shedeur will change plays, and Stefanski don't like that. I agree. So everything here says this is cover 1. Now, potentially what they should have did was they should have had a running back in the backfield, and that running back can determine where they need to pick up the blitz and help the line. But when you don't know where these guys are coming from, you got the tight end up here, and I don't know if that's a running back or a tight end you have at the bottom. They can't really help if they get confused. So in the preseason, when I said Stefanski needed to get to 11 personnel sooner out of shotgun, people said I was caping for Shedeur. This is another situation where they should be in 11 personnel with a running back in the backfield to help, because then the running back can be the safety net. So they can either run out if they don't send everybody, or you can help wherever you need to help at. Instead, they spread everybody out, and this is the outcome. I don't even think he gets to his third step. He didn't get to his third step. And none of these routes are really ready. None of those routes are ready. Maybe this route right here is ready, but he's already bracing for the hit. He's already bracing for the hit when he comes open across the middle. Because when you are running cover one, you need your receivers to be running away from guys because it's man-to-man. So the routes were too deep, and they should have probably run a mesh concept, because then a mesh concept, they would be running shorter routes, but they're dragging across the field to try to cause conflict. So here it is again. He doesn't even get to his third step. He don't even get to his third step. Can't even do a 3-step drop. So a lot of people, they're going to say this is the offensive line's fault. This play was dead from the beginning. And it was dead from the beginning because the design of it is not designed to beat what the defense was running at that time. It's there from the beginning. They don't know who's coming. They don't know who's blitzing, who's not blitzing. So right now you got 3 down linemen, you got 2 linebackers on the outside, and what's that? My math ain't working. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the box. 7 in the box. And you need routes from your guys. That tackle, he was ready to go outside. David Njoku hit him. He didn't just chip him. He hit him. Leaves him free to the inside. So the design wasn't there. That's the issue. That's why, if y'all notice, I'm always going at Stefanski. I'm always going at Barry, because these things are systematic. These are systematic issues. If you say the offensive line bad, okay, now let's go to the offseason. What did Andrew Barry do to address the offensive line? You don't see it. So that's a failure by Andrew Barry. Now, Kevin Stefanski, cover one is the defense that's killing you. What are you doing to beat cover one? There you go. I've been listening to Kurt Warner. He mentions pressure plans to beat the defense. It's true. You got to have a plan. He always says it. This is what he says. I watch Kurt Warner too. I like his breakdowns. He says you got to have a plan. You always hear him say you got to have a plan. What was the plan? Implementing them into this plan each week. I agree. Now that play I just showed y'all where he took that sack, what was the plan on that play? There was no plan. So it's more times than not, the defense is designed to beat what the offense is doing, and it's still not adjusting and adapting. So even if I give away the play earlier, we say, oh, it wasn't meant to go deep. It was meant to go to the tight end. All right, cool. What is your plan to beat cover one? If y'all been watching me, I keep talking about cover one. And the reason why I talk about cover one is because cover one is so flexible in what they can do. Joe Flacco has a lot of success across the middle of the field. You can have, instead of having the middle linebacker blitz, you can have him drop back in coverage. The middle of the field is protected. You got the deep safety. It's protected. To beat this, you got to be willing to throw it up on a 50-50 ball early in the game. You never do that, you end up like this. So they have systematic issues why they can't beat these teams. And at this rate, if all teams watch what other teams did against you and with success, they're just going to run. They're going to run cover 3. They're going to run cover 1. They might even throw in some cover 6 in there. So they run cover 4 on one side, cover 2 on the other side to take away if you're trying to do screens or things like that. So the defenses have the answers. Why is people saying Deion set up Shedeur by not going to the Ravens of Philly? Usually I don't try not to call people names. I had to catch myself there because I was about to call a bunch of people names. Let's just say they have a loser mentality. That's what I'll say. That's the nicest way I can say it. People have a loser mentality and they want to go with what's safe and they don't want to bet on themselves. The reason why most people don't start businesses because they don't want to bet on themselves, because businesses have a high failure rate. But then on the flip side, how do you get to financial success? A lot of it comes through starting your own business or creating a solution to a problem that a lot of people have. People don't want to bet on themselves. Shedeur bet on himself. He looked at the three scenarios. Let's put these people are slow. Hey, Beast. you see me trying to, people don't care for taking a road less traveled. I agree. My phone is talking to me. Be quiet. I didn't ask you for a grocery list. So these people would never bet on themselves. They would never bet on themselves. So a person who would never bet on themselves, they could never understand what Shedeur was doing. Let's put the three scenarios up there. How often has Lamar Jackson missed multiple games in a year? It's not that often. You might get the last game of the year because they're already clinched and they probably got the division wrapped up. Then you might get that last game. Are they ever going to bench Lamar Jackson? No. So opportunity not there. So going into it, you know the only thing you can hope for is him getting injured for you to play. As a person who bets on himself, you would never want to be your way getting on the field is if somebody else got injured. Let's go to Philly. Jalen Hurts. He misses more games than Lamar, but their style of play is not designed for Shedeur, and they have a backup quarterback that they like. That's why they got rid of Kenny Pickett. That's why they got rid of DTR, and that's why they brought McCord back on their practice squad. He wants to build up a franchise. They aren't listening to or believing what Shedeur said. I agree. Now you can look at the Cleveland Browns. There's two ways you can look at it. You can look at the Browns and see opportunity because they play 3 quarterbacks a year, or you can look at the Cleveland Browns and say, from the outside, it looks like too much stuff going on. And most people will say too much stuff going on. And then they will try to sell you on the idea that you'll get developed without playing in Philly and without playing in Baltimore. Somehow you're going to get better, you're going to get developed, and then you're going to be able to become a franchise QB. Even though they have franchise QBs who are still in their 20s on big contracts. So it's just, people going to spend it. I said this right after the draft. I said, it's the 3 most polarizing people in sports right now. I said LeBron, Caitlin Clark, and Shedeur Sanders. And people were mad when people were saying they're polarizing. But just look at what polarizing means. That just means people are divided. People love or hate Shedeur. So if you hate Shedeur, you're using this as one more reason to knock him. If you love Shedeur, you're looking at who he is and what he said, and you're understanding exactly why he made the decision. So it takes a special mindset to even want to take on the challenge with the Browns. I agree. That's key. A lot of guys thought they wanted to go to Cleveland until they got to Cleveland. And Shedeur has embraced his role. He's accepted it, and he's doing the things he believes he needs to do. His interview that came out last week, I believe Mary Kay was asking him the questions. He doesn't look defeated. He doesn't look down. He doesn't look like he doesn't have confidence. He doesn't look like that. So, people will spin things into what they want them to be, even when it's very clear exactly what it is. So Shedeur is no different. People are going to do that. Also, people need Shedeur's name for clicks. I'm telling y'all, just believe me when I say it. Speaking on Shedeur is it's like a stimulus package. If you speak on sports, Shedeur is a stimulus package. Shedeur is like LeBron. Look at how many guys made their whole career off hating on LeBron. Whole career. Y'all know people that basically you were a teenager and now you into your 20s, close to 30, and the same people still hating on LeBron. It's been that long. So a lot of people saw people make their names off hating on LeBron, and they just said, oh, Shedeur the next one, we're going to be able to hate on like that. So you're going to see it. It's going to be people who are trying to understand, and then it's going to be people who are taking everything as a knock. And if you notice, most of the people who are taking it as a knock, who are saying he should have been a backup, it's going to take a long time to find what they actually accomplished in life. Or those people accomplished stuff early and then fell off and never bounced back. Look at them. Look at all the quarterbacks. Look at the list of quarterbacks who said they would have just went and sat in Baltimore for 3 years. Alex Smith. He didn't like when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, but he's telling somebody to go sit. What did Alex Smith do? Cody Kessler. Look at the guys who are saying this. And then on the flip side, how many Hall of Famers have said they understand what Shedeur is doing in his reasoning? So you got to start asking yourself the question. You want to listen to the people who got to the mountaintop, or you want to listen to the people who made it to the game, but the whole story of the NFL could be told without them? Hey, y'all know I always got the questions for y'all. Shedeur is going to get his chance. You just got to be patient. I agree. Hey, Ms. Brown, for your sake, it might be versus those Jets. Because I don't speculate that much. But let's go down a little speculation before I wrap this thing up. If Joe Flacco gets benched after this week in Detroit, they go to Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel's first game against the Minnesota Vikings. And he has to face Brian Flores in that defense. He'll probably be shell-shocked. And he'll probably see ghosts for a couple of weeks before they say, we just got to take you out. They'll take him out after 3-4 weeks. I think Dillon Gabriel's going to play 4 games, and then they're going to say, we got to move on to Shedeur. That's my speculation. I try not to speculate too much because that's where everybody falls into trouble, but that's my speculation. Sean King be hating on Shedeur on the low. I've never heard of him before. Don't nobody outside of Cleveland know him. Sean King was a highly touted quarterback coming out of college. He played for Tampa Bay. I believe he was on the Super Bowl team. I don't believe he was the starter when they won the Super Bowl. People know him. He just wrong a lot. That's all. People know him. He just be wrong all the time. When he go on UCSS, he was always hyping up Cam Ward. Oh, Cam Ward is leaps and bounds past Shedeur. Now, if you notice, they ready to fire Cam Ward's coach. They ready to start over with the staff. I'm not saying I want to see Cam Ward do bad, but I know Cam Ward is so much of a risk taker that he going to put you in some bad spots every once in a while. So he just hate on Shedeur. He always bring up the legendary thing. I broke down some stuff with Sean King, and to me, he's just jealous of the entire family. Michael B., regardless of who starts as QB, I don't see Cleveland putting out more than 20. I don't see the defense stopping Detroit offense. For this week versus Detroit, I agree. I don't see them being able to generate more than 20 points, and that's going back into last year. It's the type of offense they want to run. But I think that's a choice. They've already switched to play caller in Tennessee. There you go. I'm not even following it that close, but I just know that they're already starting to point the finger. I've heard people say that Tennessee's head coach is on a hot seat. And I don't know how you can be on the hot seat when this is your second year as a head coach. And before the year, the GM laughed and said, I know we need to get better. I wouldn't say this is a Super Bowl caliber team. So what are you expecting? But once they start, they're always going to point the finger at everybody around the young quarterback and think, oh, we get somebody else in here with this young quarterback, it'll work. Detroit is more well-rounded than Baltimore. Pick your poison offense. I agree. the way that the Browns can beat the Detroit Lions is through a miracle of the defense playing the game like they played against Green Bay, and they will have to force at least 2 turnovers. At least 2 turnovers. Because Detroit's offensive line and defensive line is physical, and the Browns' offensive line is probably one of the worst units on the team. So you're going to have to force some turnovers. Hopefully Jared Goff play loose, which I don't see, but that's the way to victory. It's not offensively, and it's based on their philosophy. Their philosophy is the Browns' philosophy on offense is not to score a lot of points, unfortunately. Make them one-dimensional. I agree. Shut down the rushing attack and make Jared Goff, put him in a lot of 3rd and long situations, and just hope for the best. That's what I think. Mason Graham is a third, though, so Goff going to be sweating. I don't see them blowing Cleveland out, but it will be a 2-score game, I'm sure. I can't disagree with that. Can't disagree with that at all. This game is going to come down to the Cleveland Browns defense shutting down the run for the Detroit Lions. That's the difference in the game. If they can shut down the run, they got a chance. If they cannot shut down the run, they got no chance. Because their offense the Browns' offense isn't designed to score points. So that's just what it is. I'm happy everybody is really starting to see that these are systematic issues in Cleveland. This is not – I was saying this last year. This is going to sound funny. Before Deshaun Watson got hurt, I was doing my live streams. I wasn't doing them on YouTube. I was getting way more traction on TikTok a year ago, so I was doing my live streams on TikTok, and I was telling people, you switch quarterbacks. It's not changing this. I was saying this last year, and this was in I think it was week 4 or 5 I was saying this. And I'm like, this is not going to change. At that point, I think Grant Delpit was hurt. I think JOK might have been hurt. So we was in a different spot. Detroit got 2 of the best running backs in the league. I agree with that, Beast. I agree. So I was saying this is not a quarterback away. The Browns this year, this is not a quarterback away that's going to turn this whole thing around. Now, could a quarterback do better than Joe Flacco? Of course. But to think that this is a quarterback turning them into a Super Bowl contender, that's not it. Now, they could look better. They could be way more competitive in games with a quarterback change. But the offensive line not knowing who to block, the offensive line not being able to generate space to run the ball, all those things are hurting the offense. And part of the thing that also hurts the offense is the core, the base of Kevin Stefanski's offense hurts them. So it's just like Zedric said earlier, you don't hear them highlighting receivers. You hear them highlighting running backs and tight ends. And that's the core of Kevin Stefanski's offense. And it's the gift and the curse of why they can't do better. So that's what it is. But we coming up on the 2-hour mark. This has been another great show. Shout out to all of y'all for being here. Another great show. Like, comment, subscribe. Need to be able to build leads for that defense. Zedric, you are right there. Beast, they're throwing Jaxson Dart to the Wolves. Hey, they got to throw you to the Wolves to see if you're a Wolf. They got to see. They got to see. Michael B., let me get your comment here. My bot got you. I will be at the game. Huge Detroit fan, but I also rock with the Browns. United in struggle. Man, somebody who actually knows what the Browns fans are going through is Michael B. Hell, I'll even bark with the Browns fans on third down. Hey, 2 franchises that know what it's like to just lose for many years. But one thing I will say about Detroit is they could have got rid of Dan Campbell after the first or second year. They stuck with him. And look what it is now. But Dan Campbell, from his very first press conference, him biting them kneecaps, people was questioning him. And look at him now. So they went the unconventional route. And look how it turned out. I think with Micah Parsons, when he got hit in the eye, he wasn't right that whole game. He took 2 hits that threw him off. He took a big hit in the ribs from Quinshon Judkins. He also got poked in the eye early. I remember that. He was on the ground, and then he went out. He was definitely off of his game. Shout out to you, Zedric. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody for being here. I appreciate the back and forth. I appreciate everybody's comments. This has been great. I will be live on Sunday. This is a 1 o'clock game, so I'll be live about 12:50. We're going to go through this together like we always do. Remember, not this Sunday, next Sunday, we play at 9:30 a.m. I'm going to be live for that too. So the time change is going to be early, but we're going to be live for it too. Just let y'all know early. I will be live for that early game as well. So shout out to y'all. I appreciate y'all. It's been another great show. Make sure y'all tap in on Sunday when I'm live. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.